In the moment that Suzuki Satoru cast greater teleportation, he was taken to his memorized location. He looked around to see if there were any undead creatures that the dog zombie had missed. There were none. He could not be relieved just yet. What took his place was a tension born of fear that filled his bony body. The idea that he was in the heart of the enemy territory made his non-existent heart pound. However, that anxiety did not make him stiffen up, probably because he was undead. He advanced without a sound, using flight to ensure he did not touch the ground. Slowly, he approached the king's chamber. He was almost there. Just then, the door suddenly opened, and he could see an undead creature beyond it. Suzuki Satoru's face turned gray. This was one of the worst-case scenarios. It was an encounter. The appearance and equipment of the undead being he saw looked very similar to what Kino had described. Seeing the undead being that looked like an overlord did not make Suzuki Satoru feel like his chance had come. Rather, it felt more like danger approaching. The words fallback came to mind, but the plan had always been to conduct a reconnaissance in force. How could he leave without seeing a single one of the opposition's trump cards? Negotiating with his opposition had never been an option from the start. Therefore, Suzuki Satoru cast his spell, like a killer from the darkness. Turbolet maximize magic reality slash. He opened with his most damaging spell. This was a good move that allowed him to disregard his opponent's resistances. However, it would not allow him to gain much information. That said, he did not care much about finding his opponent's resistances, and he did not have the time to use time stop and similar spells to discern his weaknesses. The spell, known as the most damaging of 10th tier spells, struck the undead being, who wobbled. Suzuki Satoru immediately considered his next move. I can't take out an overlord in one hit. Then what about repeating the same spell? No, the enemy might teleport away and come back with reinforcements. Then should I block his teleportation? Perfect unknowable was dispelled when I attacked. Should I recast it and then make my escape? Come to think of it, why did he show himself alone in front of an intruder who could make it this far into a powerful undead being's territory? Where are his minions? Is he taking me lightly? As his mind raced, inspiration suddenly struck Suzuki Satoru. It was all a trap, designed to create an opportunity where Suzuki Satoru would leave Kino's side. Tisk. Suzuki Satoru could not help exclaiming as the anxiety got to him. That was very likely. And then the undead being which lay flat on the ground crumbled to nothing, as though a long time had passed for it, leaving only its gear to roll along the ground. Among them was an important item that Kino had mentioned, a crystal wand. Is it dead? Impossible. Suzuki Satoru thought. That single attack could not have beaten an overlord. Could it be an illusion? Suzuki Satoru immediately ruled out that notion. Anything short of special illusions or specialized class skills were useless against undead beings like himself. Therefore, it was most likely not an illusion. No, wait, could this be something unique to this world, an illusion-specialized overlord? Something which doesn't exist in Yggdrasil. If we go by the basic principle of losing something to gain something else, then is it possible that it lost the ability to dominate other undead as a price for its abilities? It's not impossible, right? Of course, Suzuki Satoru had also harbored doubts that Kino had overestimated the opposition's strength, and they were actually very weak. However, any losses caused by overestimating the opposition ought to be lighter than the losses incurred by underestimating them. It would just be a joke if the former was the case, but things would not be that simple if it were the latter. Therefore, Suzuki Satoru rejected the possibility that he had overestimated his foe. Given the present circumstances, that left only one answer. It's a trap. What was the objective of this trap? Why had the enemy given his double imitation gear? Had it really come out of the room by accident? If that was not the case, then he ought to assume that the opposition was already aware of his plans. Did word get out? Then this might be a trap targeted at me or Kino or even both of us. If the trap was only intended to catch Suzuki Satoru, then this was a place that could seal his doom, and the danger would only grow the longer he remained. But what if Kino was their target? Or both of them? Looking around, he saw no sign that the enemy was launching an attack. It was most likely that this trap was aimed at Kino. After all, Suzuki Satoru had only just appeared several days ago. No, wait. Could it be that this undead summoned me to this world? But could this be possible? Normally speaking, this would be a trap for Kino. Or perhaps there was some secret to this castle, and so he was looking for Kino, who was his key. Perhaps he had been observing everything Suzuki Satoru and Kino had been doing, just as Suzuki Satoru had been observing the opposition. The enemy was probably waiting for his chance to separate Kino from her trump card, Suzuki Satoru. It's possible. After considering that it was very likely it was all a trap, Suzuki Satoru heartily congratulated his enemy. He had probably been in the palm of his opponent's hand all this time. If he went to look for Kino now, it was very likely that he would be walking into a lethal ambush by his enemy's main forces that had been laid beforehand. Suzuki Satori no, Kunidomo would have done such a thing. If it was him doing it, he would probably use Kino as a hostage to negotiate with his enemy. This would be killing two birds with one stone. Right now, the best course of action for Suzuki Satori would be to teleport somewhere safe. After that, if Kino were captured by the enemy, he would find some way to rescue her. If there truly was no way to do so, then that would be farewell for her. From the opposition's point of view, not killing Suzuki Satori here was because he was wary of him. If Suzuki Satori fled right now with his tail between his legs, he would probably not give chase. All would be fine as long as they did not gain anything from Kino. Tisk. Suzuki Satori clicked his tongue and looked outside, then decided to teleport into the air. His field of vision suddenly shifted, like it had when he had invaded the castle. It would seem there were no teleport blocking measures in place. The worst-case scenario, the one that Suzuki Satori wanted to avoid, was if he could teleport into the castle but not leave the same way. While one could not teleport into or out of the great underground tomb of Nazareth, there were many dungeons in the game that prohibited escape by teleportation. Looking down from the air, the outer walls of the noble estate where Kino was hiding were plainly visible to him. Using his improved eyesight after becoming the Manga, he could tell with certainty that there had been no changes from before his intrusion. However closely he looked, he could not see any enemies around Kino. Is he using Kino as bait? I see. His plan is probably to wait till I take the bait and seize us both together. Well played. Suzuki Satori smiled. It was a smile of one who had completely seen through his opponent's plans. Suzuki Satori cast Perfect on Noble and looked down from the sky. There will be a good chance to save Kino when the enemy notices me in the air and moves into action on the ground. Suzuki Satori observed Kino from the air, in the hopes of divining his adversary's intentions. And so, 3 minutes passed. He heard nothing, besides the wind blowing through the air. Nothing flew over at him, and certainly nothing attacked Kino. What's this? Why isn't the enemy doing anything? Could it be he's waiting for me to make a move, and then respond to it? Damn it. You're pretty good. Suzuki Satori muttered to himself. The opposition's pretty smart. They know we don't want to die too. In that case, I'll do this. Suzuki Satori decided to make a move and change the situation. He would contact Kino with message and then change the location of the battlefield. Kino, it's me, Satori. I'm watching you from the air. Your present location is now very dangerous. Head to the hiding place in the sewers right away. You're lying. And with that, the message was cut off. What was the meaning of that? The undead Suzuki Satori panicked at Kino's wholly incomprehensible reaction. The message was a lie. Don't tell me Kino's already been hit by an enemy spell. But she's undead, right? She shouldn't be subject to mind-affecting effects. No, that's just my Yggdrasil knowledge. Are the undead in this world vulnerable to mental effects too? I don't get it. Was Kino in league with the enemy all along? But she was the one who found the hiding place. Don't tell me that was the enemy's doing too. What should I do? The PK handbook did not mention situations like this, and Suzuki Satori had no prior information to fall back on. Should I just forget about everything and run? Suzuki Satori thought. He had observed Kino's surroundings from the air for a full 7 minutes, and nothing had changed. Having grown tired of listening to the wind, Suzuki Satori spoke quietly. There's no signs of movement at all. The pointless wait had banished the excitement of being involved in a life-or-death battle. No, this is also an enemy trap. Time means nothing to we who are undead. That said, waiting is hard to bear, but it's no big deal. The enemy must be waiting for me to get anxious and rush out. A voice in his heart said, that's probably the case, and Suzuki Satori abandoned his plans to flee. Instead, he continued waiting. 10 minutes had passed. This is strange. Something is definitely not right. Anyway, I'll start by getting the dog zombie. That would mean the dog zombie with the cash item would disappear. I wouldn't be able to find the item either. He could not have it deliver something to Kino either. He could not summon or create undead. I need to consider the possibility that the opposition might have avoided us and entered the sewer, then stationed fairly powerful undead there. If I wipe out those undead now, then I'll need to worry about being ambushed by the enemy in the sewers while retreating. As he thought that, he shifted his attention to the dog zombie he had summoned with his excess mana. It had already returned to the vicinity of the castle gate to stand by. Then should I send it over to Kino and show her the way? Perhaps the enemy had not attacked because he had discovered Suzuki Satori in the air. Therefore, if Suzuki Satori was gone, the enemy might decide to take action. After considering that point, Suzuki Satori cast Greater Teleportation again, and teleported to the courtyard of a house not far from Kino's position. After he made sure that he was not visible from the castle, he ordered the dog zombie to move towards Kino. It would seem Kino was using invisibility, because the dog zombie could not see her. However, when the dog zombie reached the area he had seen from the air, Kino suddenly appeared.